Good morning. How are all of you this morning? For those of you that don't know me, my name is Carmen Lita Scott, and I am the President and CEO of the ATL Airport Chamber. We want to thank Laser Focus Media. They're going to record our event today so that we can post it on our website, and therefore, after we post several, then we're going to have a library of events so that you can go back, if you missed an event, then you can go back and actually hear it. So we're pretty excited about that. For upcoming events, we want to let you know that our next event will be a free Google workshop. It is on Thursday, April the 19th, and it'll be at the Impact Event Center. So please note the word free and Google. Free is first, Google is second. It is a free Google workshop, so tell your friends. We should have about 150 people in attendance, so you need to sign up early. It's been online for one day, and it's already half sold out. So free and Google, tell your friends, and sign up, okay? So for today's agenda, we have two speakers today. We have a guest speaker as a surprise to you also. But we have two speakers today. We have Rich Wilkins and we have Matthew Coleman, who will both be speaking to us about several things that are of utmost importance. One will be identity theft, how to protect yourself and also your business, and the other will be about cyberspace and how to protect in that environment as well. So we ask that each presenter, after they present, we ask that you hold all of your questions until the end of their presentation. Okay, and then we'll have a microphone this direction, and you can come right up to the microphone and ask your question so that everyone can hear you. We do ask that you please use the microphone so that we can capture the information on a recording. Okay? So, to get started here, our presenter today is Rich Wilkins. He's president and CEO of Rich Speaks Now. He's speaker, facilitator, and author of the original interactive series, Put Your Money Where Your Mind Is. He is also LegalShield and IDShield Independent Associate Senior Director for Small Business, Community Drivers Legal Plans, Identity Theft Protection, and Group Benefits Specialist. He's been a former member of the Board of Trustees of the Amos Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth College, United Way Services, and the Black Professional Association. Mr. Wilkins is an entrepreneur and consultant to small businesses, mid-sized businesses, and Fortune 500 companies. Today, ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute pleasure to present Richard B. Wilkins.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. And Carmelita, I want to thank the team for inviting me out to speak on this very, very serious subject. Most of the time what you hear is that when we talk about identity theft, my bank is going to cover that. I want you to remember that. My bank is going to cover that. I have a video I want to show you about the bank is going to cover that. So I'm going to start off by just so that we make sure that everybody is going to keep, I would say the word that are going to pay much attention to what I'm going to talk about here. Imagine after you leave here that you drive outside and you get on the street and you get stopped for a routine stop, just a routine stop. And the police officer says, what normally? I need your driver's license, what else? Registration and? Insurance. All right. Goes back to the car, and then all of a sudden you see a cop car comes up on your right, in front of you, on the left, and the police officer comes up with his hand on, or her hand on the gun, and says, I need you to step out of the car. What would you say?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes, sir. Absolutely, absolutely. And what they would say to you is that what it is that according to our records, you have warrants for your arrest. And you have unpaid speeding tickets in California, Colorado, et cetera. You say, I've never been there. They'll say, is this your driver's license? Yes. Is this your other information? Yes. Then I need you to step out of the car. And this happens every day. And people always say, don't worry, my bank will take care of it. But I want you to remember that when I show you this video. So let's get started. We all heard about the Equifax breach, correct? Everybody heard about it? So it's like old news, would you say? But yet and still, there are different reports that are still coming out about how much information that they say is 143 million people that have been affected. At this point, they said 151, and it still continues to grow. So again, Equifax, as you know, is one of the three major, credit bureaus. So as a result of that, then the other credit bureaus may pick up different information from whatever, again, according to whatever happens to the breach. Now, what the key thing of understanding about breaches is that the crooks, or the thieves, do not have to do anything with your information for years. They don't have to touch it. They can sell it on the black market. But again, we're going to continue to go through. What you need to know is the type of information that was breached. Social Security, also your driver's license. Well, we talked about driver's license, date of birth, and also your credit record, things that you may have gotten loans or whatever. So they have a lot of information on you. Equifax, I think it was about a month ago. You might have seen this in the New York Times. Did you see it? Mm-hmm. Right. About a month ago, it said, well, it's a little more information than we thought. Did you hear about that? Okay. All right. So there are different types of identity theft. So let's just talk about tax returns. So you hear about people filing people's tax returns every day, right? Especially around this time. So of course, everybody says, well, get your tax returns filed early. But yet and still, this is a very serious matter that someone can file your taxes, and they're doing it from jail. and they have these post office boxes and so on where the money is going. So again, it's a crime that they find themselves participating in, because why sell drugs when you can do this? Because it's hard to find these crooks, all right? So second thing, Social Security identity theft. Whereas, let me tell you a story. There was a woman, CNN, it was on CNN, and she went to get a job. And she was really excited about getting that job. And so she went for the second interview, and everything was great. The third interview that she went for, she sat down with them, and she noticed that they had this look on their face. And they said, we don't know why you're applying for this job. According to our records, you already work here. So imagine that, because people were using Social Security numbers, because you can buy them in the flea market just like you buy anything else in the flea market. But here's another thing. If a crook is using your Social Security number and working different places and not paying the taxes, then what is happening is the IRS is looking for you to report that, and you can't report that because of the fact you don't know that it's happening. And so there's the liability, again, of Social Security tax fraud. The other is driver's license. I spoke about that earlier in terms of people using your driver's license, collecting different speeding tickets and not paying those tickets, and you have warrants for your arrest. The other here is medical. We're going to see a quick video on that a little later on in the program here. But medical identity theft is where an individual can have your medical information, go to a hospital, rack up a bill, and that bill comes to you. There was another story. There was a woman that went to the hospital. She had a baby. The baby had, they discovered was drugs in the baby's blood system. And so that woman racked up that bill, but it was somebody else. It was somebody else's Social Security number. So what happened is they called on this woman, the police department, that was the victim. And as a result of that, she had 3 children. And so what they did was when they called them, they said, you are an unfit mother. This is the police department. They said, and that you had a baby and it had drugs. And she said, I don't take drugs. She says, well, you're under arrest. And so what do you think happened to her children? They took her children. And it took her years to get that straightened out. So again, as a result of someone taking and utilizing someone else's medical information, they can also just say, you think about it, they can take your let's say your prescriptions, they can alter your prescriptions, they can alter your blood type. So it's again a serious matter. And so we'll talk about various things that you can do, and you'll see, because I never have another video on a woman that was affected by medical identity theft. Credit, you hear all the time, my bank will take care of everything. So keep believing that. That's okay. Your bank will take care of that, because up to a point. I have a client that he had his checking account breached. And as a result of that, he called the bank and they said, well, you've been with us 10, 15 years. Don't worry about a thing. We'll take care of that. However, we have to have our investigative unit take a look at that. He called me, he says, well, that was like 3 or 4 weeks. And I said, well, how come you didn't tell me about that? Because we could have helped you with that. But it was 4 weeks later. Now, he's well off, I will say. But supposedly somebody has to pay their rent, or they have to make payroll, whatever it is, as a victim in terms, until they got that cleared, you can see that that put them in a very bad situation. Would you agree? Everybody agree? All right. Criminal and character identity theft, as I said, I have a video for you. I want to show you that. Child identity theft, or children's identity theft. Many times people don't pay attention to children's, from a children's identity theft, but not knowing that children get Social Security numbers when they are born. Did you know that? Everybody know that? And so as a result of that, you wouldn't think about, they don't have a credit report. You wouldn't even think about that, right? So again, they don't find out until they're 18 years old that they have a home, boats, bad credit, the whole 9 yards. So when they get ready to apply for credit themselves, as a result of the fact that the identity theft thieves have been utilizing their Social Security number, then they have, again, something, 18 years, 19 years is a very difficult thing to go back and try to unscramble that. Synthetic identity theft is something that when the thieves utilize your Social Security number, Carmelita's date of birth, Diane's information, let's say medical information, and as a result of that, you can see that they've created a person. So when something happens there as a result of that, it's hard to unscramble. And so again, you can be a victim of identity theft, not even know it, and having all sorts of situations happening that you don't know about. Then the situation here whereas that people have problems securing loans as a result of identity theft because they don't even know that it's on their record. You have also harassment from debt collectors, and they do that. And you're wondering why they're calling you when you don't owe that bill. But I am saying to you, if you do have that, you make sure that you address that, because I had a friend of mine that told me, I don't owe that bill, so I'm not paying it. And I told them to go to, and as a result of that, the next thing you know, she had garnished. They had garnished her pay, because you can't ignore that. But it came as a result of her being a victim of identity theft. Of course, we helped her get that straightened out. Possible arrest and crimes committed by identity thieves, red flags on background checks. There was a gentleman that worked for the Army, was 10, 15, 30 years with the Army or whatever, I don't remember the amount of time, but he had clearances because, again, certain clearances as a result of his time in the service. Well, his brother used his Social Security number so he wouldn't have to pay child support. And as a result of that, the brother lost his clearances. That's, of course, that's really mean that his brother would do that, but nonetheless, that happens every day. And so it can affect you where you worked and et cetera. Increased absenteeism. As a result, we're talking now to the business owners that you have an employee that's very valuable to, especially with the small business, you only have 2 or 3 employees, maybe one that's really important. So if they don't show up for work, that could be really critical, especially if you're out of town or et cetera. Would you all agree? So we call that, whereas it's absenteeism as a result of them having issues with identity theft. Or, as I cited you earlier, about them having a situation where they were stopped as a result of having, they say, outstanding warrants for their arrest because someone took and utilized their driver's license information. And then you have employees that we call presenteeism, where they're there, but they're having situations with identity theft and they don't know what to do about it. So you can see how this can really affect production. It can affect your business. Of course, we talked about Social Security claims, 1040. But one of the key things with identity theft is, as you see, it says on the bottom of the screen, you are considered guilty until proven innocent. It is the only crime that you are considered guilty until proven innocent. Why? Because they don't know it's not you. It's the same thing with the gentleman I told you about in the bank. He had 15, 20 years relationship, but what does it matter? They don't know it's not him that did that. That's why they had it, have it investigated. So you can see that this is a very serious crime. We talked about driver's license identity theft, but there's a rise in the medical identity theft, which I want to show you this video. Let's see.
Deborah Ford had a totally clean record, but after a thief stole her purse and used her insurance card to get prescription after prescription of opioid drugs, a warrant was issued for her arrest.
At the time, I was like a 59-year-old lady, never been arrested, and all of a sudden, all these charges on me.
Consumer Reports says medical identity theft can lead to all kinds of problems.
If a thief gets your medical identity, he or she can use it to get expensive surgeries, medical goods like wheelchairs, and cleaning up the bills and the charges can take years and really negatively affect your credit score.
According to the Medical Identity Fraud Alliance, once your medical record gets mixed with the criminals, you can get the wrong diagnosis or the wrong treatment.
One of the best ways to protect yourself is to make sure you always have copies of your medical records. That way, if a thief adulterates them, you can prove they've been altered.
Also, check your medical records at least once a year to make sure they are accurate. Read each benefit notice from your insurance company and call immediately if you see anything fishy. And if you lose your health insurance card, ask for a new ID number and a new card. Deborah Ford finally got her name cleared, but it took 5 years and $1,500 in legal fees.
So you can see how serious this is. And again, people again take it very lightly where they say that, don't worry, my bank will take care of everything. I have one other one, which is criminal and character identity theft I want to show you.
Hear a lot about identity theft, with the number of incidents rising as the economy, of course, gets worse. But there is one case with a bizarre twist. A California woman had her ID stolen and soon found money disappearing from her bank account. But when she reported it, she found herself behind bars, charged as a felon. NBC's Lee Cowan explains.
It was on a golf course near San Francisco last year when Margaret Somerville got a phone call that made her heart sink faster than a 3-foot putt.
Yay!
It was from police 950 miles away in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, who told her simply,
You will be arrested.
And that's when you fell apart.
I absolutely fell apart. You ready?
At age 66, the grandmother and a retired vice president of Wells Fargo Bank was met by police at her front door and led away to jail in handcuffs.
It is the most frightening, horrible experience. Honestly, I cried probably for 24 straight hours out of fear.
She was booked on suspicion of felony identity theft, but what made her so incredulous is that she says she's the one who had her identity stolen from a streetcar right here in San Francisco. She said she told police, she told the bank, but there she stood, handcuffed, not the victim, but the suspect.
There was never any logic in any of this, but they just kept going after me and after me and after me.
Why? Police believe Margot was linked to this woman, caught on a bank surveillance camera 5 months after Margot's wallet disappeared. Police say she was passing stolen checks, withdrawing more than $60,000, not only out of Margot's account, but several other Wells Fargo customers too. But it was the handwriting on those forged checks that police found curious. Detectives say it looked just like Margot's, enough to charge her with 19 counts of identity theft and criminal impersonation. Margot's attorney says that's a connection that's almost laughable.
At no time did they ever find a link at all between Miss Somerville and this woman in Colorado.
Finally, after Margot spent more than $50,000 on legal fees, prosecutors dropped the charges, saying there wasn't a likelihood of a conviction. And Wells Fargo credited Margot's account for the money she says was stolen. But the Wheat Ridge Police Department told us because Margot may sue, it was, quote, not in a position to discuss the case.
To this day, they still think I did it.
A case of mistaken identity, she says, that cost her far more than a stolen wallet. For today, Lee Cowan, NBC News, San Francisco.
And Margot Somerville is here with her son Todd Harris, who happens to be a contributor to MSNBC's Hardball with Chris Matthews, along with identity theft expert Jim Stickley. Good morning to all of you.
Morning.
You don't look like a crook to me. You're not one, are you? What I'm shaking my head over here, Margot, is that you did everything right. Okay, so you get your wallet stolen, you cancel your credit cards, you file a report with your bank, you file a report with the police, money gets taken out of your account, and you end up in handcuffs. What am I missing here?
I did a handwriting test, and from the handwriting test alone, they decided that I had written all these forged checks. They never looked into my bank accounts. They never looked at telephone records. It took them 2 years to fingerprint a check and find out that my fingerprints weren't on the check.
I can only imagine. Here's this retired vice president of a bank, and they call you and say, you are going to be arrested. When they showed up at your door, did they explain any of the evidence against you, or they just put you in handcuffs and take you away?
They just put me in handcuffs and took me out in front of all my neighbors, put me in a police car, and took me to jail.
And although this was, what, a 2-year ordeal? Is that what it was?
Yes.
$50,000 in legal bills?
Yes.
And although the charges were dropped not too long ago, you have a fear still that this may not be completely over.
The charges were dropped, but I am not convinced that they think that it's over, because they still think I did it.
You're sure of that?
That's what the police told the San Francisco Chronicle.
Basically, so they dropped the charges because they didn't think they could get a conviction, not because they're sure you're innocent.
Exactly.
Todd,
exactly.
At any point, when you're hearing this story, did you think, maybe my mom's living a double life?
I had to teach her how to cut and paste on the computer. I'm pretty sure she's not the ringleader of identity theft network.
What was your reaction when all this was happening?
You feel so helpless, and I was scared, for what would happen to my mom, but mostly I was angry. I was angry at the police and the DA for this Keystone Cop investigation, and I was angry at Wells Fargo, who I thought turned their back on my mom.
We've got statements from those people. Jefferson County District Attorney Scott Story says prosecutors determined we did not have a reasonable likelihood of a successful conviction and that dismissing the case was in the interest of justice. And from Wells Fargo, we're very pleased that information Wells Fargo provided to the authorities and to Ms. Somerville's attorney led to the charges against her being dropped. You're shaking your head.
Well, that's just not accurate.
No.
Not the way it went. Jim, she did everything right. Okay?
Absolutely everything.
She was the victim of identity theft. So how do you protect? This was obviously a major screw up, but how do you protect yourself?
Well, what she did is generally how you protect yourself. I mean, you make sure you know what's in your wallet. If your wallet's stolen, you make sure that you go ahead and contact the right people. If you have credit cards, you cancel those credit cards, you notify the police, you file a fraud alert. Everything she did is exactly what is supposed to work to solve the problem.
Did you do the right? Did you have your Social Security card in your wallet?
I did not.
You did not. So she did that right.
And I didn't have a check.
You didn't. All right, so this is obviously one of these unusual situations. The lesson to be learned here is that even sometimes when you do everything right, things can go terribly wrong?
Absolutely. I mean, she did exactly what you're supposed to do, and she still ended up in a nightmare.
Where you go from here?
I hope it's over, but I would like to get some of my legal fees back, or all my
it's a
legal
lot of
fees
money.
back.
That is a lot of cash.
As I had spoke about earlier, that you're considered guilty until proven innocent. So you can see that 80%, they say 80% of the time that when you're a victim of identity theft, it's a legal matter. Therefore, you have to have an attorney to help you in these matters. You can see that, especially if you have folks from collection agencies calling you about something that you don't know, or being arrested by the police, again, because you have warrants for your arrest that are not your warrants, but not, yet still you are the victim. So you can see how important it is to have, when you are a victim of identity theft, to have a plan that takes care of both the legal as well as the identity theft problem that you may have. All right, so this is just a slight commercial, all right, that again, you have monitoring alerts like any other service that you may have. But one of the couple of things that I want to point out, social media also, and the black market. So there's three things that I'm saying that what IDShield has is, first is $5 million guarantee. Secondly, that we have is that we're the only company that you are assigned a private investigator in case that you are a victim of identity theft. So that's the only person that you have to talk with. And again, just think of calling into a call center as opposed to talking to someone, and that's the only person that is certified and able to take care of that matter, and up to a $5 million. So that means a $5 million service guarantee that will be until we get that thing solved. So Legal Shield, as I told you, you need to have in the case that 80% of the time that you are a victim of identity theft, it's a legal matter. All right, so 8 key reasons why businesses, now when I'm talking all the way up to this point, I'm talking about individuals. Now, of course, as a business owner, you need to have, I'm solid on this, you need to have identity theft and a legal service, because this could put you out of business. Now, but what I want to talk about now is, as a business owner, there is no identity theft protection for a business. Now, I'm not talking about cyber, but I'm talking about a business from an aspect of no more than you must be diligent about some of the things that I'm going to talk about now. Fair enough? So, why 8 key reasons why they pick businesses, and no matter what size they are, they don't have to be a large business, it could be a very small business, is because, number one, most businesses have larger bank accounts, right? They will have $5,000 or $10,000 in their bank. So what the thieves now, why they're focusing on small businesses or businesses period, is because it's a bigger bang for their buck. Instead of a consumer that may only have $500 or $1,000, you can see that a small business would have $5,000 or $10,000, so it's a bigger hit. Can everybody see that? All right. The other is easy credit and account opening. When a business goes to the bank, any bankers in the audience? When a business goes to the bank, you can see that most of the time banks are very, very, happy to get that type of account, especially if they're going to open it with $10,000 or $15,000. So when you find that to be the case, again, the identity thieves say, hey, I'd rather get a business and, again, commit fraud with them than a consumer. So the other thing is invoicing and payment terms. What identity thieves can do is they can mask meaning that they can pretend to be you, or they can mask and be pretending to be another business. As we know, invoicing and payments are normally what the terms are net 30. Is everybody familiar with that? So what happens if an identity thief sells a product to someone, and it's really, again, they're not selling anything, but that you think you're going to receive something, or it's going to take at least, or it's you that they are one of your customers, or playing like some other customer but they're posing as you, and they're waiting for their product or services, or they receive a product or services, they can get the money sent to them, and it'll be 30 days before you'll find out what took place. Does everybody follow me here? Okay. Higher credit limits. This is another reason that, again, identity thieves pick small business or businesses, period, because they have higher credit limits. So as a result of that, they can take advantage of that when you are a victim. Easy available information. All businesses, as a result of them wanting to do business with other businesses, their information's out there. The EIN number, a lot of different information is on a business that very readily you can accomplish and get or get that record of people, and they want you to have it because they have a different type of credit report system. So they want you to have that, so that as a result of that you will again do business with them. Everybody familiar with that? Okay. All right. Minimal security. Many times. And we're going to be talking about cyberspace, identity theft later when Matthew comes. But most small companies don't have what larger companies have, various security in their systems to protect themselves against identity thieves, cyber identity theft. And so that's another reason that they pick them. Larger purchases can be made with less scrutiny. If you go into, and you have a business, and you go into Office Depot, and you order 10 chairs and 20 desks, they're not going to pay that any mind, pretty much, right? Because you're a small business. But if you were just a consumer, then that would raise a red flag because you're talking about $30,000 maybe as a result of that. But when the identity theft crook gets a hold of your information and goes to a store or a vendor and orders, they're just happy to have that kind of order. So again, that's where the minimal security, larger purchases. Difficult to investigate also. It's hard for the police department in itself, as you could see from the video that you saw. They very seldom have, again, the staff to take care of identity thieves. So it's a long process, but with businesses it's even more difficult. Many of you have heard of shelf corporations, or they call them shelf or shell. All right? So in that case, that what can happen is that the identity thief can mirror your company. You ever, when you fill out forms, you have what they call a number 2 area. You ever see that, where you put your address in there, and then there's a second spot in there, and you should be putting in there, let's say, what building, like this has a building. It may be the suite number 400, et cetera. Sometimes people don't put that in there, but the crooks can do that and just change the address a little bit, and so information is coming to them. Or that they're charging things and you're not getting the bill for it. You won't even know about that till later on during the line. So physical, that's part of physical address mirroring. The internet information black market. What happens there is that information is sold back and forth all the time. Remember when we were talking about in the early stages that 150 million people were affected from identity theft by, again, the fact that Equifax had the breach. Well, they take that information and they sell it on the black market. And just think about the fact that that's what I told you, they could sit on this for years before, again, utilizing any of your information. So you could be a victim of identity theft once, and then they take your information and you can become a victim of identity theft again and again and again. As a result of what they do is they buy and sell, and they do it for 25 cents, $2, $5. Why? Because 150 million, you can take your time in doing that. Misuse of technology in business services. Just think about, have you gotten telephone calls whereas it's a 404 and the same, let's say, like mine is 404-394-6700? Well, I've had people where I see a call coming in, 404-394. So if I see 404-394, what do I think? Yeah, well, it's close by, right? Or close by, right? So, oh, it might be somebody that I talk to in the neighborhood. But what I found out is that with technology, they can set these phone numbers up, and I didn't even know. I mean, just in preparing for this, I couldn't believe that, because that's, like I said, every time when I answer it, it's always somebody saying either certain things like if I don't know if you have any of you have had this experience, where they'll say, this is so-and-so collection agency, you owe so-and-so, and you say, what? What are you talking about, right? Or they may say they're marketing something, right? But the fact is, I didn't even know that they could do that. And so that's part of what we talk about, the misuse of technology and business services. There are a number of other ways that they can do that. Cyber crime and business banking fraud. So here's where I get to stop. What I'm going to do now is to my associate and the old school. Okay, we were having the discussion about old school. He said, well, you're old school. But he says, but I'm old school to certain ages and so on. But we're getting ready to have him come on up. All right? Thank you very much. This ends my portion of the presentation. And now what we're going to be talking about is cyber security.
First of all, I want to say thank you to Ms. Scott for having me out to speak, as well as Rich for giving me the opportunity to share with you guys a little information. We'll hope this works, right? I wanted to touch base on something he said about phone calls, and this is something kind of like that you need to pay attention to. It's kind of new. I just heard of when people call you and ask you a question and they say, where you have to say yes. Is this Mr. Johnson? Be really careful on saying yes, because what they're doing is they're recording that and they're able to apply that to anything, you know, like you, except for credit card. So it's something new to me. I don't know. Has anybody heard that? Because it was new to me.
Yeah. As
Have
a
you?
matter of fact, I say, you called me, you tell me what my name is.
Right. I say no, I don't hear you. But yeah, so just pay attention to that. One of the reasons I'm here, first of all, and she didn't get a chance to do my bio, but I am actually have been in the automotive industry for about 20 years. And I've always loved technology. You know, I'm a businessman at heart. I love people. So what I said to myself, as I move away from automotive, about 2 years ago, I joined forces with a business partner of mine, and he's in IT, okay? And it was really exciting to me because I hope we all know that that's what the future is IT. And in regards to crime and criminal and things that are going, that's the new criminal. So although I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we provide, REH Systems is an IT company. We stand on 4 pillars. One is IT consulting, enterprise consulting. So we deal with business, streamlining automating their processes through technology. Another thing is governance and compliance. So as a business and you're using technology, whether it's OSHA, HIPAA, those are things that we can provide for you and make sure that you're compliant when you use technology, because you can get in a lot of trouble sending documents and not really, staying compliant. Another thing is cloud computing. That's one of our pillars, web and also application, storage, backup, and big data analytics. The third thing, of course, is why we're here, is cybersecurity, and that's when we get into malware, protection, and identity access. That's one of the things right now is really, really big when we talk about personal, and one of the things he touched on, we'll touch on later, is that small business is the biggest thing they're going after now. Because like he said, it is easier, and they're going after that. And the third thing we do is managed services, which is monitoring and auditing your business systems when you're away. What we do is we allow you to not have to have an in-house IT person to take care of that. There's a lot of systems now which allow us to handle that remotely, and we're helping companies save money that way. So that's a little bit about REH Systems. We are actually a Microsoft partner as well as an Amazon Web Service partner. So in terms of accreditation, we're an 8A certified company, but we do focus on small business. So it's something you should really look at in terms of utilizing those services. Now, one of the things that happens, is we know with cybersecurity, is the process happens where your network is breached. And what we do is help in protecting that. So you may think that everything's okay, but you always want to have some cyber protection and not the commercial protection. As small businesses, we want to have a higher level of protection, and that's what we provide. We're going to talk about a few types of cyber attacks. Is anyone familiar with malware? And what about DOS, which is denial of services? Anybody heard of that? Okay. And one of the things I know right now is everyone here is a business owner. Is that correct? So a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, I think we kind of are familiar with. So a lot of this might be repetitive, but one of the things I think we don't do as small business, because we're so busy working on our business, in our business, we don't work on our business. So we really need to take action. Just like consumers, they don't really think about it until something happens. Our offices are now in Georgia. We've actually extended to Texas and Alabama. As I said, we're an 8A company. We're an SBA 8A certified company. We do IT consulting, cloud, cyber, and managed services, as I talked about. One of the things we service is government. We're actually, that's one of our big focuses is government contracts right now, and also, of course, consumers. A little bit about the enterprise consulting, we spoke about that, as well as the managed services. Our mission is to provide IT consulting, computing, managed services, and cyber protection. And also, we help divest executive and IT plans for your company to enable you to conduct business in a secure, cost-effective, and reliable way anywhere on any device. And that's what I say, in terms of having to hire someone to do that in-house, we allow you to have that outsourced. As a business development manager, what I do is try to tear down doors and open opportunities for us with our technical expertise and our technicians that are able to take care of those situations. My partner has 30 years in the industry, which allows him to delve into these opportunities to take care of you guys. What is cybersecurity? Does anyone really know and have an idea of what type of attacks? Has anyone here been attacked? Has anyone had any situation where they've been compromised? Can you tell me a little bit about what happened and how they got in?
I'm not quite sure how they got in, but an alert came up on my laptop that said call us immediately. And then I ended up purchasing a service to help me get my computer back up and running. And I found out later that was faulty. Yeah, it was a scam. Yeah.
And the reality is that so many times when we do that, it looks like that, right? And what happens is we don't have the protection, and most cybersecurity attacks happen by the user. You know, they actually activate and allow them to come in through the gate host, through the malware. They can't get in unless you allow them to. And in terms of the average way that they're attacked. So a lot of people don't know that it's the user that allows that to happen, okay? Some of the things that happen are obviously slowing the computer, the blue screen. Who's ever seen the blue screen pop up? And at that point, I won't say it's too late, but that's when you needed someone to come in. And what we can do is we can get in your computer remotely and allow you to be able to take care of that as well. That's where we talk about denial of services. And what happens with denial of services is you get into your computer and you can't even get in. They deny you to utilize your computer. Who is aware of what just happened recently with the ransom? Is anybody familiar with ransom attack? Probably. But actually, what happens is they take your information and they hold it ransom. And they charge you to get your information back. So in a lot of situations, when that happens, who thinks you have to pay or you don't have to pay? Who thinks you have to pay or you can get out of it? It's no choice. Actually, there's no way that you can't pay because they go, and we all know that they don't really have an address. They're in the space, and that's the new cyber criminal, okay? 62% of all attacks right now are against small business. And it's 4,000 attacks happen daily. And I know a lot of us think, it can't happen to me, like we hear so much, oh, not me. And actually, it's just a matter of time if you're not protected. So if you don't have a real solid protection, if you're using a commercial, a basic protection, they can get through that. So that's something you really want to look at. Another thing, the average small business goes out of business when they're attacked within 6 months. What would you say an average amount you think that would be for a small business when they get attacked? How much would you think it would be? 50,000, 20,000? Well, actually, the average is 690,000. And you would think, well, I don't have 690,000. But the reality is, like he said, they take your information and they go get more money from your information. So a lot of times we think of it as something that, they just took my bank account, and oh, I'm crushed. But the reality is they can set you back beyond that point. So you really want to take the proper precautions. Some of the things that happens is, obviously, like we said, the intellectual property. You may have information on there that how many times has your computer crashed and all your information's gone. And that, to me, for me, whether it's something simple as a fire where your pictures are gone, and that's where you want to look in cloud. I mean, who here has cloud and uses cloud? You do? And I'm going to tell you one thing that I've noticed is it's becoming a lot more familiar, as time goes by. But you'd be surprised how many people will say, I am not going to mess with the cloud. And one of the things is phishing. And that's the same thing where someone, kind of like on the phone call, they'll call, they'll send you an email, and then it'll look familiar. And you'll open it up. But one thing I really want you to do is when you look at certain emails, what they're doing now is, say it's a YouTube video or some of your vendors that you currently use. Check the spelling. They will simply misspell one word and you open it up. So you really want to be careful. And I know for a lot of us, we're click, 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 click. So we really, even myself, I have to admit, I'm not a techie. I'm learning a lot more about it. So that's why I say, as I talk to people about this, I'm like you. I'm a business owner, and I'm learning to be able to be protected against these things too. We're going to talk about.
We got an email from a nonprofit organization that we're with requesting money, and it was my email. It had my name, but our treasurer caught it because it came from a different domain email, but it had my name.
Right.
And it just triggered him or her to just be like, did you send why are you requesting this money? And they were asking for like $3,000 you gotta send. And it was from a nonprofit organization, and it had my name on it, but they looked at it and they asked me why you need it now. So they called it, but.
Exactly. And I think that the familiarity of it is what we look at. Because throughout our day, I think we're trying to get through those emails. And I think one of the reasons that it's so important that, I come out and learn more as we all learn more is because it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. But in the same token, we know that technology on the defense side is getting better too. We just came back from the DOD day in Industry Day in DC. And the reality is the gentleman that was speaking to us had on a T-shirt, right? So we're at a government event. Guy comes up with a T-shirt on. Now, what would that say to you guys? You'd be like, that doesn't look government, does it? Nowadays, they're employing and they're deploying resources that are outside the box. And I think as we move forward, we know that whether it's social media, whether it's email list, that is where business is going. And if we're not knowledgeable on it, and if we're not being, aggressive and progressive ahead of time, we can go out of business. So we really want to make sure we take advantage of technology from the protecting ourselves against the criminals and having the weapons that we need. Now we're going to go over 8 safeguards. They're really simple. I mean, that's one thing I really look at is who here, we know, it's not new to us, this information, but I think we take it for granted that it's like, oh, that's for the techies. But I think nowadays when we look at our smartphones, we're all techies. And if we're not techies, we want to be. Because we know if we're not, what's going to happen? We're going to be left behind. So for me, moving into the space, learning more about this space is so exciting. And, I'm stepping out in a new arena, and I challenge all small business owners like I am to step out in this space, learn more, and be creative in how you defend yourself. So one of the things is the use of the malware and the software that's protected. Who here has malware protection? And they know the name of it, and they know what it does, and they know the quality level of it. A lot of people. Right. And the reality is if you have an IT guy, you mean in terms of outsource or in-house?
Outsource.
Okay, absolutely. And I would challenge you, as much as we have that IT source. I have a friend of mine who wanted to go into business. This is years ago. And as a small business owner in Toledo, Ohio, I had to do it all. From the accounting, we all know, QuickBooks. And I always tell people, you have to learn every aspect of your business, because at the same token that you have somebody, you have to be knowledgeable as well. So as much as you have an IT guy, I would implore you to know what services he's using, make sure he's up to date, because as technical as it is, the exterior is simple. With Google right now, with YouTube right now, we can know. And I just challenge everybody to step into that arena and be able to know. Never open unexpected email is 2. If you don't know who it is, stop. Really take time and look at your emails like your CEO or partner did, was able to protect you, whereas otherwise, click, you open it up. And I think we all do it. Who just opens email quickly? I think we're more, it's almost like a reflex sometimes. But when we see something we don't know, absolutely, I take it to spam if I don't know it. I don't even care, and they'll contact me phone if it's that important. Be careful on clicking unfamiliar links, because sometimes you may open up an email, and everyone who here has Facebook. No Instagrams, right? It's funny how it transitions. We'll soon be on Instagram. But a lot of times I'm sure you've seen people who've hit you up and said, I've been hacked. Right? And what they did is they opened something, and then it exposes them to all of their email list, and they shoot everybody out. And now when you open that email, it's really from someone you know. So that's even where you got to be scary. So be careful. One of the things I really like now is two-factor authentication. Who knows what that is? You don't count. And I love when I have anything and I open up something, and then I have to, especially banking. I got to get a text. And a lot of emails right now, a lot of services, the 2 authentication will also have you put in a code. So that's a 3 authentication. You get the text, then it pops up another screen, then you have to put in your 4-digit code. So I really like that. The other thing is, who here gets an update? It says update. Now I'm gonna bet money that they don't update it. You say later, right? Right? But the reality is what those updates are is patches and security. One of the things that at RH Systems, what we do is we make it so that you have no choice. You can't move forward, and that's where your IT guy can go in and make sure that those updates happen either at night, so that your user doesn't breach you. And that's really what you got to worry about. And one of the big things that people don't do is have a long-term strategy. So, if you know that who has an alarm on their house, that's a long-term strategy in a way. You already are proactive in thinking, I live in a nice neighborhood, but you know what? You never know. So I really challenge everyone to look into your long-term strategy and how you're going to deal with cyber, because one of the things is that it changes, would you say every month? Daily. So in regards to staying abreast of that, not to say that you have to worry, obviously, to the extent every day, but you need to be conscious daily and then have that long-term strategy, whether it's once a week, whether it's once a month, or really having outsourced IT. Even someone who has 2 employees, even if you have your business and you're a solopreneur, you need to have an IT expert that you utilize periodically, okay? And developing a long-term strategy. And one of the things I like to do is offer everyone something free, okay? A free consultation, I get you on the phone with Roy, will take 30 minutes to go over and see exactly, even if you have an IT guy, you know and I know when you have your car, if it's acting up and you take it to the mechanic and he tells you something, he gives you a price, you kind of say, let me take it somewhere else. You know, if you go to, maybe not a doctor, you want to have a trusted doctor, you don't have to jump around with doctors. But in the same token, if it's serious, you might want to get a second opinion. So, I mean, as much as these things are simple and they're basic, you know, and what I try to do is create opportunity for people to learn more, you know, to give you the opportunity of our resources to be able to help you be wise in what you do with your IT, and then also to be proactive. My big thing is proactive, progressive, and accountable. And if you use those three approaches in life, let alone in business, you can't lose. You know, you run into a situation, but you're going to be accountable and you're going to take care of it. So, yeah.
How do you vet a cyber company properly? Like you can vet a doctor, you can vet your attorney or law firm. How do you vet
Okay. And let me repeat his question, because it's a great question. Right. Well, I can repeat it for him anyway, so he doesn't have to get it. He asked, how do you vet an IT company? You know, like we're already familiar, and it just kind of shows how new the industry is in regards to you taking it serious. You know, a lot of people don't do that. They get on the phone, you know, and obviously you got things like, the chamber, your referrals. But the big thing is their certifications. You know, whether it's Amazon, we're Amazon Web Consultant, we're a Microsoft partner. Those are companies that are well respected. So if you've got those accreditations, that means you went through the training to be knowledgeable. And once you get it, you want to make sure that they're up to date. You know, you don't want to have a doctor who doesn't get ongoing education. And one of the things when you're accredited with these companies, because of how technology moves, they make sure you get updated on it. And RAH Systems, one of the things I know that Roy does, and I use Roy as a reference because knowledgeable. Every day, he's online, he's researching, he's finding out what's up there, what's out here. And that's what you want to do, is just check their certifications. And it's always good to have a conversation with one or two, because if three of them say the same thing, or two of them say the same thing, and then another one says something different, you know, so it's kind of a rational deduction, but ultimately it's about the certifications. So, you know, as I move forward in this challenge and an exciting space, you know, as we move over into, you know, I think about Star Trek, you know, or Enemy of the State. Who remember Will Smith, Enemy of the State? You know, he was running and they had this little screen and we were following him, right? And we were like, wow, that's crazy. That's some Star Trek stuff. You know, and the reality is, I think about this. When are we going to sit there and go, zoom, and be transferred somewhere else? And we don't think that's possible, right? But I feel like art imitates life. And I cannot wait until I can go see my mom, like, zoom, and be there in a second. So on that note, you know, if there's any questions, you know, I challenge it. Obviously, the information on the identity theft as well as the cybersecurity, I think we all know. But it's to get engaged. It's to be able to learn more and stay active. So.
Matthew, my question is, how do you vet a cybersecurity firm properly, like you can a doctor or you would a law firm?
And kind of just reiterating what we talked about, one of the things I just thought about is a Better Business Bureau. You know, you obviously want to make sure this person hasn't been, you know, charged with crimes, because being in cybersecurity, you have the inside knowledge of how to do it. So that's one of the things. Then obviously certifications, you know, you want to make sure. I remember, you know, obviously all the shows and articles where doctors were getting their diplomas from other countries that didn't have to go through the same criteria that you would have to in the United States. So you really want to make sure that they're certified and keep ongoing education. So, awesome.
Matthew, I have a couple of questions. One of them may be very difficult, but we'll see. We'll see. I was told that if you don't open the email, but you can do that preview. You know how you can preview it? You haven't opened it, and at the lower end of your screen, you'll see what's in there. And that, you know, you're safe if you do that. Can you confirm that? I don't know if you can.
I can give you a confirmation that that's true as of now, you know, but in the same breath, because you haven't opened it. In the same regards, you know, when you open up your email and you highlight an email, it's not open. So you haven't accessed and they haven't accessed you, but when you click it and open it up, it's open. So you can do that.
That little preview, you can kind of see what's going on and delete it if you need to. I thought that was pretty cool. Right. You mentioned earlier in your presentation that the user allows, you let them in. And some of the ways we let them in, obviously opening an email, but visiting websites, and I mean, what are the ways we let them in?
And when you ever go to a domain, you've now allowed them access. So when you open up any website, you're allowing some access because now you've allowed them to see you because you have to access their domain. There's a record of that. But where you go to other sites, what they do is you go to that domain and it tells you go here. So that's where that's where their triggers are at. That's where the malware exists. So I think it's it's degrees in which you can make yourself more accessible to activity. He's got a consultant.
I just have a statement. I went to another one of these years ago, and the one thing that came out of it that my wife and I did was use a P.O. box, and I haven't heard you say anything, because a lot of times they're training people to go steal things from your mailbox, from bank statements to everything. That's how you get compromised. So we've switched a lot to a P.O. box, almost all our billing statements, all that. However, the bank keeps the post office keeps giving us other people's statements and stuff like that, which at least someone else isn't stealing it. However, I think it's something to be more secure than having it come to your mailbox and sitting there while we're at work. So you might want to touch on that.
And one of the things for convenience sake and for mail, and we want to keep the U.S. mail going, right? But I go and I have all my online statements. I think many companies and most companies, they offer that now. So to avoid that and also saving the P.O. box, all of your banking information, all of your very important information, I think you can have that, sent to your email. So it'll alleviate the mail fraud, I think.
As long as it doesn't get compromised, right? That's why we haven't done that yet.
But think about it. People talk about the cloud, and if whether we go back a year ago or 5 years ago, who was scared a year ago about the cloud? Or was it 5? At some point, you were like, man, this cloud, and I use this example. I drive down a street where there's a prison on one side, right? Before I go to the house, it's a prison. Then on the other side, it's houses, right? So I drive and I look over there, I'm like, whoa, you're not getting in or out of there, right? And then you look to the left and be like, they've probably got an alarm, double bolt lock. And that's what I look at in terms of that's the cloud and that's your house where your PC or your server is. So to your point, if you're dealing with Comerica, we won't talk about the breaches because they're few and far between, let's be honest. I just think it's safer to have that information and more convenient. So when you get something from Comerica, I'm not going to say you're 100% safe, but it's Comerica. So I would challenge people to do online statements, and obviously we're going green, right?
On some of these links you get in your email, if you just hover the cursor over the link, don't click it, but you could see in the bottom the actual email or actual website it's going to. They'll differ from the link. It'll look funny. It just won't look right. And if it doesn't look right, it's not right.
Can you speak a little to backing up your data and how you keep that secure, whether it's online or on a physical device in your office?
Absolutely. And that's one of the things in terms of what I do is kind of more like the services that we offer that I feel way more comfortable in that stepping in this space. I'm excited about it. But that's pretty simple in regards to, you've got your device, and I use that example of the prison. That's what we do when we have it at our house. We think it's secure. So when you talk about, we use Acronis Backup, which is one of the top in the industry in terms of data backup and recovery. It's not something you can click on and get your information, but it can restore. And another thing is the cloud. When you have your information, everything backs up to the cloud. So it's safe in the cloud, it's stored in the cloud, and then you want to have that backup and recovery. And you could also have your physical device. But the reality is that, like, we have a product called Office to Go, where you get Office 365 with Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Skype for Business, and OneDrive. And then Acronis Backup and Recovery, which continually backs up all of your information. And then Trend Micro, which is #1 in cybersecurity. So that whole package monthly for a small business is under $25 a month. So you've got your Office 365 program, which who has opened up an Office document and it didn't open because maybe they're on 2007. So what this does, or you're sending a document and they say, hey, I can't open it because they have the new version and you have the old version. And what that allows you to do is have all those services from protection, backup, cloud, all of the updated Office products for a minimum amount so that you don't have to spend that big bulk of money. And know that the cloud is a server. So a lot of people who say, hey, I got to go out and buy a server. Well, how much is that? Wow, that's not a computer. That's more expensive. And in today's world, you think, let me add all that up, right? Well, geez, that's $25 a month times this. Well, by the time you go buy your server, $5,000. When you talk about servicing that server, if it goes out, calling someone in to fix it, and then also the cyber protection. So it's definitely economical, and then safer. And then for those people who really, really have to have that, like I feel kind of bad here when I say this, but I have a flash drive for my presentation in case there was no internet. So I think that as we move forward, there's always going to be that possibility for problems. But in the same token, I think we know when we go places, there's a lot more free internet spots. Our phones are now allowing us to access the internet for free more. I think soon it'll just be universal internet everywhere we go. So I think as the criminal is growing, the protection is growing as well. So I hope that answered your question. So I want to get you on our service.
How do these two things work together? Because you provide a lot of information on identity theft and the fact that they're targeting small businesses. Is it totally separate, cybersecurity and identity theft, or are the two merging?
Okay, think about in terms there is no identity theft protection for a business, but it's identity theft protection as a business owner. So cybersecurity protects hardware, am I correct?
And information.
And information.
Data.
Right.
Electronic data.
But other than that, some of those points that I was bringing about, 8 keys and ways that, again, that identity thieves can see a way of breaching you is, again, because you have to be on top of that. You really do. And what I did is I have folders for everybody so that you have resources for that, because you're sort of on your own outside of cyber.
The product that small business has to use is legal, a lawyer, more not a blanket coverage, staying on top of your business, whereas a personal can employ a service that can do that for you. But with cyber, it's more of the electronic data that is protected, which for a business is the most important thing besides your bank account. And who here has a bank account that they don't check every day? As a business owner, your deposits and your checks are going out more often usually and you're on top of it more than you are as a person. So I think that that protection is there by yourself and looking at your bank account. And I do feel like the bank protects you. You just have to work with them and be on top of it as well.
And again, just to add a little more to that, in terms of the business, if you're a key employee, because you have 1 employee or 2 employees or whatever amount of employees, if any of them are missing, will that affect your business? And so again, when we talk about it from identity theft protection and legal, for your employees as well, because again, if they were a victim of driver's license identity theft, they could be coming from somewhere over the weekend and don't show up on Monday and Tuesday because there were warrants for their arrest because they were a victim of identity theft. And so, but if they had the protection, they would be able to call the law firm because they have access 24/7 on both. But one thing I want to bring up on social media, something that happened to me on social media, is that I got phone calls from several people that I hadn't seen in 10, 11, 12 years. And they wanted to know, should they sign up for this deal that I had going, that if they put $2,500, that in terms that they could make $100,000, and they knew me and so forth. But what I'm saying that is a lot of times people don't want to put their telephone number when you have social media as far as your business, but you need to put that on there because they called me. If they didn't call me, they could ruin me. because they could have put out there, on Facebook or whatever, Rich is, I don't know what happened to Rich. He's no good anymore now. He's got this sort of going on. So again, it's important that they can contact you. So, because social media is another way they can, again, mirror that's what they did. They mirrored my Facebook.
So that wasn't you?
and I want to give everyone here a lot of credit, because I think so much of it is common sense. I think so much of it is just being aware and keeping your eyes open. And I think as small business owners, we do that. But when I think about LegalShield, and a lot of people are like, oh, I don't need that. I think the next level in business, whether we're investing in the future in our staff or in R&D with our products, is the insurance part of it. So as a person in LegalShield, I even see more value because it may be an X amount a month, but it's like car insurance. It's like cyber security and Trend Micro. You're like, dang, it's only $8 a month. I'm not gonna worry about it. But then when something happens, you say, dang. And I think that's where we're working in our business and we're not being proactive. And I look around the room and I see, from all the questions that were asked and the answers, we have some progressive business owners here. So, I'm sure you guys are on top of it, but if you're not, just pay more attention to it.
So if you'd like, please either attach your card or whatever. I'll send a request to be a LinkedIn guy with you, or again, Twitter. But I will be posting updates on the different types, especially to business owners in terms of what the resources that they have, because you have to be diligent at this point, because there is no protection for you not as an individual, but your business, without you being on top of your game. All right?
And then also I want to give everybody a card, like I said, free consultation, get you on the phone with an experienced tech person that can really delve into any questions you have that are really deep questions about technology, and then compare it to what's going on. So, it's free, and I'll give you a card before you leave.
So my question to you is, we use a Mac mainly. We do a lot of design work. We use a Mac mainly. We use PCs just to sign into iSupplier, which you guys probably are familiar with. So we don't use it a lot. But most of our information, like we said before, we throw it in the cloud. Those clouds get compromised as well. We use Basecamp and other services, Google, to put our information on. So you do service Mac and PC.
Yes, we do have outlets of service Mac and PC. But to your point about clouds getting compromised, that's why when we talk about Google, Google it was not made for business. It was made more for consumers. So when you look at Microsoft being a Microsoft provider and the cloud for Microsoft, it's safer. So, if you're dealing with certain clouds, just be real, do the research. Do the research and make sure you're not dealing with off-brand. And Google's getting better. Because they're trying to compete in the business market. But right now, the government is transitioning 240,000 employees to the cloud. So they're continually transferring migrating people to Microsoft Cloud.
What would you suggest if we're using maybe 5 different computers, both operating systems, to use your service? How would we do that? If we were maybe a couple devices, like how does it work?
Well, what we're speaking to is cloud-based. So it doesn't matter what computer you access it. Actually, a good example is I can go anywhere and get on your computer and access my information through the cloud. Obviously, I want to make sure your computer is secure. But in the same breath, my point is whatever computer it's on, you'd have a license, and each license comes with 5 licenses for your PC, your laptop, your phone, and 2 other devices. But you don't want to put it on someone else's because then they could access your information. So it'll cover all of your computers.
I don't have a question, but I would definitely like to validate LegalShield identity theft. I've been a member with Rich now for probably 8-9 years or more, and I've definitely benefited from it on a personal level. And working for All-in-One Security, Rich has I don't know how many of our employees who are members of identity theft, and many of them have already benefited. And I think when I walked in, I heard someone saying that much rather have it than not have it. We had a couple of employees who who Rich had reached out to on more than one occasions because they said, yes, I indeed want it, but they never took the time to get it. And then all of a sudden they had a need for it and wondered, oh my gosh, why in the world did I not go ahead and get it when I had that opportunity, and signed up immediately. So I vouch for the service on a personal level as well as a business level. So if you don't have it, it's definitely a product that I'd recommend. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. I'll get you that check after.
Well, let's give a round of applause to both of our presenters. So, the next thing on the agenda is always to tell you what's coming up next. So what's coming up next for the ATL Airport Chamber is our free Google event, and as I mentioned earlier, it's free and it's Google. So, and it's going to be at Impact Event Center, which is 2323 Sylvan Road in East Point. If you're not on our mailing list, go to www.airportchamber.com, and all the information about the event will be there, and you can sign up there and also get on our mailing list. Some of the things that you will learn in this session is how to create and verify a free Google My Business listing. I have already had that experience and corrected some things that involved the chamber on the Google listing, but I had gone to a Google workshop and found out how, so I didn't have to have the IT person do it, so I was very proud of myself. Another thing is to optimize your website for search and mobile. You know, many people are using their phones to search now, and it looks differently on your phone than on your computer, but this event will show you how to make sure it looks the same way on both, and that it has the crispest look for you. Use search engine marketing opportunities for your business. Benefit from free online tools to grow your business, and learn simple but effective tips for content and email marketing. So those are some of the subjects that we'll discuss at that event. So we would love to see you there. And in the meantime, we want to thank you for coming to visit with us today at our event on identity theft and how to protect yourself as well as your business. And we look forward to seeing you at the next event. Take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.